First of all, good morning. Thank you for coming. My name is Linda Levine-Midori. I have a master's in art therapy. I also have a PhD in applied psychology. And my dissertation study is really the basis of my book, which we're going to be talking about today, and the use of themes, innovative programming for the Alzheimer's population. What I'm going to speak to you about today, and you're going to actually experience it, is using themes for an innovative approach for the Alzheimer's population. This programming is called, and this is actually what the book looks like, Therapeutic Thematic Arts Programming, and it is based on and shows you very clearly the research on the brain. This program justifies why you and really the whole world should be grasping this notion that if we do art with individuals who have Alzheimer's disease or individuals who are in a skilled nursing home or well people, we could cut down the healthcare costs tremendously. And art materials don't cost that much. And it sounds funny, but it really is true when you think about emotions and stress and how that affects our physical body. Most of you have seen this, that the brain, a normal brain is thick and plump. An abnormal Alzheimer's disease brain or a brain affected with plaques and tangles shrinks. Okay, what's the normal size of the brain? What's our brain weight? Does anyone know that?
10
8 to 10 pounds.
Well, that would be a really big brain.
No! Than most babies.
It's 3 pounds.
Oh.
So, you know what I always think of when I walk around and say, oh, I could lose 3 pounds. Imagine the size of my brain. No, I don't want to lose those 3 pounds. So, when the brain shrinks, in the last stage of dementia, the brain goes down to 1.5 pounds. Shrinks to 1.5 pounds. In this area of area 1 here, this is the entorhinal cortex. It's actually located right below your earlobes. And this is the processing center for making new memories and retrieving old memories. This area is right below the hippocampus. So the plaques and tangles form below the hippocampus, and then this is mild Alzheimer's disease. Moderate Alzheimer's disease, it goes right through the hippocampus slowly, and it then starts to take away complex memories and the ability to do complex things. Now, for us as art therapists, that's very significant. And that's why you see people with mild, moderate Alzheimer's disease, they can still cut, they can still paste, they can do puzzles, because this is not taken away until they really get to the 3rd stage, where it goes up to the neocortex and the back of the brain. And that's where all of our executive functioning is shut off. That's where you see hospice care. The body can no longer function. Now, why this is really important to know regarding art and art therapy and what you're doing with the patients is that what Bruce Perry stated was that 90% of our neurons are actually in the hippocampal region. Believe it or not, you sitting here and listening to me, you're making new brain cells, because we've actually been able to correlate this with a higher level of education. People who have higher levels of education have thicker hippocampus. The hippocampus, we have 2 of them. They're on both sides of our brain. And Marion Diamond, a neuroscientist from UCLA, decided as a student to study that region in brains of rats. Because as she was dissecting rats for her studies, she was just randomly looking at the brain always interested her, and she noticed that in rats, that area of the brain was different sizes. So her first study was putting these rats into 3 cages. Have you heard about this study? Okay. She took 6 rats and put them into a very tight cage. You know, a little mouse cage where they were not comfortable in moving around. She took 6 rats and put them into a nicer sized cage with 1 toy. And then she put 6 rats into what I call, and she called, as she described it, the condominium of cages. You know, upstairs and downstairs. It had the spiraling loop they could play with. And the medical students changed the toys every day. Every day they got a new toy to explore and play with. Well, at the end of the year, and this was the first study that significantly showed environment affecting the brain. At the end of the year, the rats in the tiniest closed cage had the smallest hippocampus. The rats in the middle cage had a third bigger, but the rats in the condo cage had 3 times the size. And don't forget, they were being stimulated with the toys. They were going up and down the stairs, 3 times the size of the hippocampus. That was the first study. So as she went on, she said to herself and her colleagues, how am I going to study human brains? I mean, you know, the HIPAA regulations and all the laws. What am I going to do? Well, she got a brainstorm. In 1999, she had a real brainstorm. She said, I am going to ask for scientist labs across the United States. I'm going to advertise for brains in your back shelves that you're not using. Can you please send them to UCLA? I want to do a study. And I always think of the postman going around with, got another brain today, Marion? And this woman at that time was 80 years old. She had blonde, white hair, very elegant. And she said, so I had 300 brains donated. And she didn't want to be biased, so she gave all the brains to her assistants and her interns, and they dissected these brains. And what they found, they came back to her after a month and said, well, lo and behold, we have found that in the first set of brains, the hippocampus is very, very small. The size of a raisin, if you will. In the second bunch, about 100 or so brains, the hippocampus is the size of a grape. In the third set of brains, about a little less than 100 now, maybe 80 brains, the hippocampus was 3 times the size. So it was the size of like a walnut, if you will. So she said to her students, okay, now go back, because all the brains were numbered, go back and find out who these brains belonged to and what had they done in their lifetime. That was her brainstorm. So her students went back, they got all their biographies, and in fact what happened was outstanding, and it was in the New England Journal of Medicine, because she then was able to correlate that in the first set of brains, those individuals had, you're not going to believe this, an average of a 6th grade education. In the second set of brains, the individuals had high school. They graduated high school. And they had what we would call blue-collar jobs. The third set of brains, and this is good news for all of you, were people who the average was college, of course, master's degrees, doctors, lawyers. But interesting, certain occupations that don't need very much education, like an electrician and a carpenter. You know, those occupations where they're looking at how the wire runs from here to there. They have to actually physically put things places. They're not doing a rote day-by-day activity. So, pardon?
Problem solving.
Problem solving and using dimensional space relations and being creative.